Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ashley and today is Monday, which means it is Mental Health Monday, where I will be covering various topics having to do with mental health, wellness, and personal growth to help you guys get through some of your tough situations in life and hopefully learn from some of mine. Before we start, I just want to clarify that I do have a background in psych, but I am in no way a licensed professional. And if you are struggling seriously with your mental health, then I strongly suggest you reach out to a professional. I will leave the suicide hotline right here for those of you that need it. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. So last week, we talked about perfectionism and the traits. And let me tell you, like when I was filming that video, I was literally looking at myself the entire time because the ends of my hair were so scraggly and raggedy. Like, don't pretend you didn't see it because I know you saw it because I saw it. That's all I was focused on. And I literally was like, you know what? I might just not post this video. And I was like, you know what? We all have a bad hair day sometimes, or a bad wig day, or a bad weave day. You know, it happens. It happens. But I just had to get over it, even though I'm not over it, and I still cringe about it. But that leads us into the contents of today's video, which is coping with perfectionism. So like we talked about in last week's video, that need to be perfect can be so debilitating sometimes, and it can often hold you back from the things that you want to do and are fully capable of doing because you can't just do it perfect. This week, we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do for yourself that can help you adjust that mindset. And mind you, it's going to take some time. And a lot of these are going to be things like, yeah, but I just can't do that. But you can. I believe in you. So without further ado, here are 5 things you can try to help you manage your perfectionist mindset. Number 1 is practicing self-love. Okay, I get it. I know what you're thinking. What does self-love have to do with being perfect? Like we talked about in last week's video, one of the causes for needing to do everything perfectly could be low self-esteem. And so by practicing self-love regularly, you can raise your self-esteem. So what exactly do I mean by self-love? Self-love is a process. You're not going to wake up tomorrow after listening to some affirmations and be like, you know what, I'm great. I love me. I'm fabulous. Everyone should love me. That's not really how it works. Here are some things that I like to do that might work for you. For me, I like to practice affirmations. I don't like to say them to myself because I feel silly. I know a lot of people do, and that works for them, and I think that's how you're supposed to do them, but I just feel silly when I try to do that. So what I like to do is I like to, when I go to bed, YouTube has tons of overnight affirmations. So when I go to bed, like right before I'm about to fall asleep, I will put on my YouTube and I'll connect it to my Alexa, so then it plays in my room, and it's a little bit culty, but like it works for me. And I'll play whatever I need that day. So sometimes it's like trauma healing, sometimes it's self-esteem boosting, sometimes it's confidence boosting, you know, just whatever I need for that day. And even though I'm not like conscious and awake for it, I like to tell myself that I'm subconsciously absorbing this information and absorbing this self-love. That's like a very minimal effort thing that you can do to raise your love for yourself. You can also raise your self-love by doing things that make you happy that are not linked to any sort of status or leveling up or anything like that. Don't make it about goals. I mean, I know this is probably like the only place you're going to hear that, like, don't have goals. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you're practicing self-love, try not to make it about accomplishing something. Just do things that make you feel happy. Do things that make you feel good about yourself. For me, I painted my nails. They don't look great, okay? They look terrible, actually. But I know I just felt happy while I was doing it. Or I'll do yoga. Just anything that makes you feel good that is not tied to having some sort of goal or achievement. Because then eventually over time you're going to start to feel good about yourself and realize you have value outside of your accomplishments. Like, you're just great. You are that bitch. Like, you don't even need to accomplish anything. It's a bonus. You're great on your own. Tip number 2 for managing a perfectionist mindset is setting limits. So this goes back to what we kind of talked about with the all or nothing thinking, feeling like if you can't do everything and you can't do it perfectly and you can't do it all at once, then it's not worth doing. Something that's really helped me with that is I'll set a timer. So especially, we're on this again. We're on my cleaning, okay? Not that I'm even clean, but it just seems to always be the example that comes up. So like I mentioned before, I am not happy with just like picking things up. Like I need to deep clean my entire house in order to do it. Otherwise I just won't do it. So something that's helped me with that is setting a timer. I'll set a timer for 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes. Then I still get that satisfaction of accomplishing something because my goal was to clean for 20 minutes. But I don't have that pressure of like, you need to do it all and you need to get it all done. Like I still did what I needed to do. So I still feel good about myself. But I didn't need to like go above and beyond and just be so friggin' extra with it. Another way that you can set limits is maybe have a do nothing day. I know if you're anything like me, you'll love to-do lists, okay? It's part of that little like, ooh, I get a little high when I accomplish something. But maybe set aside a day, maybe Sunday, as it is the Lord's day, the day of rest. Set aside a day where you don't do anything. And I don't mean just sleep, whatever. Like you can get up and shower. That's fine. Like hygiene's good. But I just mean like have a day that you don't have something scheduled to do. It's going to be hard at first and kind of uncomfortable. I don't know if you're like me in that way, but for me it's like if I go a whole day and I don't do one thing that I feel like proud of or like I accomplished something, then I get like this guilty conscience at the end of the day. Like, oh, you wasted a whole day and you did nothing. Set aside a day that is intended for that. And then eventually it'll become a little more normal for you. Like I said, it's going to be so uncomfortable at first, but it is important to just rest. You don't have to be doing something all the time, and this will help you kind of like relieve some of that pressure. And then you'll have more days that are for reflection. Pair those days, your do nothing days, with a self-love day. So maybe you won't do anything quote unquote productive those days, but maybe those will be the days that you spend just pampering yourself, learning to love yourself. Maybe make a journal of the traits that you like about yourself. Tip number 3, practicing gratitude. And I know what you're thinking, like, what does that have to do with being a perfectionist? You're practicing gratitude, you're learning to slow down and accept every step of the process instead of just focusing on the end goal, which is what we talked about in our other video about perfectionism, and how if you're focusing only on the end goal, you're going to feel empty once you reach that goal, and you're going to feel like you need something else to do because you didn't really care about the process. You only cared about getting it done. And that high is very short-lived. So if you're practicing gratitude, something that I do, I don't know why I just ran out of breath. Did you hear that? I was gonna like go on like that didn't happen, but then I was like, that was a very heavy breath. I don't know why I'm not breathing. Anyways, so something I like to do is I keep a gratitude journal. I would be lying if I say that I use it consistently. I'm trying to. It's one of my things I'm working on right now, is that I right before bed like to write down 3 things I am grateful for every day. Right now, I probably do it like once or twice a week. I'm trying to get to the point where I do it every day. But like I said, the purpose of this is learning to love the journey, learning to love the mistakes, seeing that there's something to come of everything. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right, every time. You still learn something, and it's still something to be appreciative of, as opposed to being like, oh, I messed up, I hate myself because I made a mistake. Maybe reframe your mindset into thinking like, what is something positive that came from this mistake I made? Maybe it taught you about what you really want. Maybe it taught you more about yourself. There's something that comes out of every mistake that you make. So practicing gratitude will help you to be able to cope with things when they're not exactly perfect. Practicing gratitude can also help you appreciate things about others. So we talked about how a lot of times we can be judgmental if you're a perfectionist because you're kind of projecting your own issues. But if you're practicing gratitude, when people do something that, even if it's something you hate, Like maybe somebody does something that you're like, oh, that is a disgusting habit that they have, and then you kind of realize it's a trait that you have as well. Instead of thinking like, oh God, I'm like that, I hate that, practice gratitude and be like, I'm thankful that I saw that in someone else, and now I know that's a trait I do not like, and now I know where I can work on myself. And if it's a trait you don't have, then use it as an opportunity to practice a skill such as patience or acceptance of others, and be grateful for the opportunity to do that, because the world is providing you endless opportunities to be better and to do better, and that's something to be thankful for. That's not something to be angry about. The fourth tip that I have for you is to do things that you're bad at. I hate this one. I literally hate this one. I can't even lie to you. If you're anything like me, I like to stick to things that I know that I'm good at and just do them really, really well. Don't be afraid to do things that you're afraid of. I know that sounds like it doesn't make sense, but there is no better feeling than knowing that you didn't think you could do it and you did. And you might not have done it perfectly. You might have had to challenge that all or nothing way of thinking where you're like, oh, I can't do it great, so I'm just not going to do it. And that might become something that you could potentially be good at. And if not, then we go back to practicing gratitude and being thankful that you took the time to try and learn something new, and have respect for how difficult it was, or appreciation for those that can do that sort of thing. It's all this positivity that you're putting into the world. It all will come back to you, and that will kind of help you with your self-esteem. All of these things tie in together. And the fifth and final tip that I have for you is to say yes to help. And this one sucks balls. I cannot lie to you. It's really hard for me. I feel embarrassed when I have to say yes to help. I feel ashamed, like I'm putting other people out, you know, like, oh, they shouldn't have to help me with this, especially because I put myself in my own mess or whatever, like, or I should have been able to handle this. Who cares? If they're offering you help, assume that they're offering it genuinely. And if they're not offering it genuinely, then they're assholes, and you shouldn't feel bad for accepting it, because people who do that, biggest pet peeve. Don't offer to do something if you genuinely don't want to. Like, just don't offer to do it. Like, why? I don't get it. No one can do it all alone, and that is something I still struggle with. Like, as much as I preach about how you can't be perfect and you can't do it all by yourself, my mom can attest to this. She tells me this all the time, like, Ashley, you can't do everything by yourself. No man is an island. And I sit and I listen, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I know, okay. And then I continue to try and do everything myself. But learn to say yes to help. Start with little things like, do you need me to put this away for you? Fine, okay. If they don't put it away exactly where you want it, don't freak out. I mean, you can always move it. If they don't do things exactly the way you wanted to, you can always correct it. This is something I had to learn when it came to being in relationships, because I always wanted to do everything myself. And that was not cute, but my nose was so itchy. And it was for a few reasons. It was because I didn't want people to come back and be able to throw it in my face. It was because I didn't want other people to do it wrong. It was because I didn't want to inconvenience people. Like, I had plenty of reasons. But at the end of the day, what I learned was when I did accept that help, it did make my life easier. Even when they didn't do it exactly the way that I would have, or exactly the way that I wanted, it was still one thing less I had to do. And even if I had to go and tweak what they did, it was still less work than doing it all by myself. Getting comfortable with accepting help is not only going to make your life so much easier, but it's also going to make people feel more connected to you. If you allow people in, if you allow them to help you, if you allow them to be there, because having that closed off shell can, even though you might have good intentions, a lot of times it can make people feel like you don't value them or you don't want them in your life. And even though that may not be the case, people can only experience things from their perspective. In hindsight, they might be able to look back and understand your perspective, but that doesn't change the way they're going to feel in the moment. And a lot of times that can drive wedges in your relationship. And having unstable relationships can trigger that need to be perfect. Like, oh, I can't maintain friendships. I can't maintain a relationship. Like, none of my coworkers like me. It's because I'm not good enough. Do you see how this all ties in? Do you see how this is all about self-esteem, really? I mean, when it all comes down to it, it's all about self-esteem. So we all need a little dash of that every once in a while. So those are my 5 tips for you today. I hope you guys did your homework for last week. Yeah, don't think I forgot. I'm not the teacher who forgets. Hand in your assignments. So if you did last week's assignment, that means you're ready for this week's assignment, which is to apply the 5 tips I just gave you to the goals that you are trying to accomplish. Will it be easier if you're not dead set on doing it perfectly? When you feel like you need to do it perfectly, can you apply these things? Will it make a difference for you? And if you didn't watch last week's video and you're like, I'm not going to, well then apply these 5 tips to your everyday life, because this isn't even just about perfectionism. This can help you with almost anything, because once again, it's all about self-esteem, and having poor self-esteem is the root of a lot of issues that many of us have. So that's all for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found some information that was useful and helpful. And if you don't feel like it'll help, let me know that too, because I want to make sure the information I'm giving you guys is actually useful and helpful. So that being said, that is all I have for you. I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Love you. Don't look at my crusty nails. Bye.